First of all, thank you everyone for attending today. I think it was a great series of sessions, industry leaders, pundits, some contrarians, lots of good conversation in and around the demo pit, as well as conversations coming out of these sessions. So thank you all for your active participation and your interest in Forum. Wanted to remind you that there will be a cocktail reception immediately following this session in the Widener and Warden Garden. And following that as well, Liquid Hub, my organization, will be hosting an after party at City Tap. It's at 3925 Walnut Street, and that'll be at 6 p.m. It's usually quite an affair. I wanted to actually also thank you on behalf of Liquid Hub as one of the sponsors of this year's forum and forums in the past. Liquid Hub is a digital integrator headquartered here in Philadelphia. Philadelphia has been an important part of our growth and an important part of our focus as we went from being very much a startup to being one of the leading technology firms in the region. So thank you for our many customers who are here today and for all of our supporters along the way. I'd like to reintroduce Peter Coffey. He will be coming to the stage now, followed by the Demo Pit Award announcement. Peter will be doing our closing session today, bringing it all together. Thank you all very much, and welcome Peter Coffey.
Thank you. Like all of you, there's always, I always face the question of, when should I go to a live event versus just watching the TED Talks? The value of getting everybody together today, it seems to me, really emerges from hearing many different things over the course of the day, but then kind of tying them together into a so what, and but what do I do differently when I get back to the office? And so we've sort of gotten into the habit over the, is this the 4th year we've done this? We've gotten into the habit over the 4 years that I take my notes over the course of the day and have about 15 minutes to just kind of say, okay, let's, what's the narrative thread here? What offsets or reinforces other things that you've heard over the course of the day? And so here we are again. And after this, I'll be introducing the 3 finalists for the Demo Pit contest. And like you, we'll look forward to finding out who's going to be first among amazing nearly equals. A few months ago, we talked about what a theme for this year would be. Last year it was about customer engagement. And we've been talking a lot at Salesforce lately about this idea of getting people to stop modernizing, replacing, and cost-cutting their silos, but instead really think differently about the role of IT as a creative medium. And several of the things that we heard today really reinforce that idea. And so saying from silos to systems really means that. It means not migrating your silos to the cloud. It means not migrating your silos to your handheld. All those little apps, every one of them with its own little data collection, and some people liking that because of the compartmentalization it provides, but at the same time, the ability to reuse the data, to have anything expose and export or consume or repurpose or fuse data from multiple streams. That's really what Nicholas Negroponte was talking about when he wrote Being Digital. Merely encoding analog stuff into bits, that's just the opening gambit to having this ability to do what someone in the chaos panel, I think, referred to as streamlining and making more flexible your business processes and behavior, whether those are pure overheads you're trying to reduce or dramatic innovation opportunities that you're trying to maximize. Because the goal, as we heard from the afternoon panel, is to build the systems that will keep you from joining the music industry and being, I believe the technical term was, publicly spanked by digital transformation. We're looking for systems that will not merely let us do better what we already know we should do, but systems, again, to grab one of the examples from the panel, will let a heavy metal band discover that some of its most freely spending and affluent fans are now people my age living in Connecticut, and redirect their tour routes accordingly. That's not where they thought their fans were, but the data tells them things that they didn't think to ask. And that's, someone referred to this as the goal of building systems that will do something we've never asked them to do before. Generate hypotheses from data and not merely investigate the hypotheses that we perform. Some people have called this the end of science, which is a very apocalyptic label for it, but when you think about it, there is a meaning to that. Science has always been built around the understanding that collecting data is expensive, and you only do it when you're trying to confirm or refute a pretty specific idea of what might or might not be true. And so you spend 10 or 20 years, you get the PhD, you get to the point where people say, you know, you understand the basic stuff that's going on here well enough that you might actually have some original ideas about things that could be true, and then we'll fund you to collect the data to confirm or reject those hypotheses. That's what the scientific method was, and everybody knew it. Well, the new method is to say, data's cheap, data's abundant. I've got algorithms, I've got data scientists. I don't need to walk up to a haystack and look for needles, having first formed a mental model of what is a needle. I can walk up to a haystack and say, is there anything in there that's not hay? Is there anything in there that would hurt me if I sat on it? Is there anything in there that would be attracted to a magnet? I can ask questions that are really about behaviors and possibilities instead of having to walk in with a very specific idea of what the truth might be. That's really the difference between data science and database administration at petabyte scale. One of the things that I think we heard a couple of times today is, don't assume that you've got to do the amazingly sexy and unbelievably cool to be doing something significant. We heard from Liberty. They're saying, we're a property management company. You might think asset management is something we've got down. No, actually, they're really doing their first true asset management system, where every room in a building, every air conditioner in a building is really something they've got a representation of, and they can start to ask questions in aggregate about those assets that they've never been able to ask before. It's one of the most fundamental core functions of the business they've been in for decades, and yet this is a legitimate and high-value target for a digital transformation. The same is true of Fox, which is saying, we're applying this to e-discovery. Discovery is something that attorneys' firms have been doing for a really, really long time, but applying electronic techniques to it, I believe the thing I heard them say is that it's doubling the profitability of doing e-discovery services. That's kind of needle-moving. Don't be embarrassed to use cost reduction or revenue production arguments for doing this. It's not as sexy as the stuff you read in Wired, but it's definitely going to get you attention and maybe even funding. Don't think that you're too late to be cool. We heard today that 54% of companies surveyed say, actually, we haven't even begun using Hadoop to do big data analysis. The people you're reading about, well, they're news because they're still unusual. This is not yet the norm. You are still on the leading edge of adopting many of the techniques that have been discussed here today if you go back to the office and say, I'm going to do something. And that is, in fact, one of the real takeaways we heard from someone today. For heaven's sake, start something. Stop waiting for someone to hand you a product that does what everyone does. I'm always baffled when people say, well, I think it's too early to adopt this. In what industry is being in the last third to adopt a new model an attractive idea, or even in the second half? Why would you not want to be in the first third or the first tenth, once it's clear from numerous examples that this stuff really has some potential? Because the driving principle I think we've heard today, apart from the simple idea, the structural idea of busting the silos, again, busting the silos is not the accomplishment. Becoming digital is not the accomplishment. You do these things so that you can start to be data-driven. And today, not having a goal of becoming data-driven would be very much like not putting electricity into your factory a few decades ago because the water wheel is still turning just fine. This is the new electricity. This is the source of energy. This is the source of power to drive you ahead of competitors, to drive you to a level of customer loyalty that gives you actual profitability instead of just trying to compete at razor-thin margins on volume alone. Never get into a land war in Asia is the line from The Princess Bride. Never get into a price war with Amazon or Walmart. Just don't do it. Bad idea. Now, here's something that I had not completely thought out before it was really driven home by one of the panels this afternoon. Just as we are challenged to do this in our businesses, so are the people whose business is to give us the resources to do it. Why do we think we can go hire the talent to do this? What makes you think the schools are any more up to date on this stuff than you are yourself? But someone talked about the alarming prospect of hiring brand new, newly graduated engineers who are just as clueless about this as you are, because it's not part of the curriculum yet. And if you want a demonstration of how dramatic these changes can be, I had an opportunity to have a dinner a while ago with the Vice President for Innovation at Cirque du Soleil. People think of Cirque du Soleil as an entertainment company. It's an amazing technology company, phenomenal technology company. If you look at a show like the Beatles' Love show, the technology involved and, frankly, the human risks created by the dependence on the absolute precise performance of that technology are enormous. Well, a while ago, a really well-known Las Vegas show, Siegfried and Roy, had a terrible accident, an animal attacked Roy, if I remember correctly. The show shut down very soon afterwards. Las Vegas is a kind of a small town, and the MGM Grand came to the people at Cirque and said, look, just as a gesture of community spirit, would you mind putting the 100 guys who've just been put out of work at Siegfried and Roy at the head of your interview list for Cirque? And out of those 100, they were able to hire 4. Because the other 96 had 10-year-old skills. We're talking about the circus business. But these guys, they couldn't work in the highly automated, exceptionally high-tech environment of a modern Las Vegas show. An animal act with white tigers? Yeah, they could handle that. 15 people flying at the same time on precisely planned trajectories, entirely dependent on synchronization with the Beatles' recorded music? Maybe not so much. It was a big leap. We're talking about assembling the full picture here. We had a great panel earlier today on mobility strategy. Mobility strategy is not delivering your website on a smaller screen on a mobile device. It's not about the device. It's about the behaviors that result from the fact that people now expect to be able to carry, and it's not so much that it's a mobile device, but a personal device. And if you think of this as, now we have to be able to deliver content to them when they're mobile. Okay, iOS and Android, we're done. No, I'm sorry. That's not going to do it. You have to be able to deliver a personalized experience, because consuming content on this is a personal experience. Well, if it's going to be personalized, that implies knowing a lot more about the customer, and you don't want them to have to enter all that data. So you have to be working on inferring from context, from other things that the device knows about where they are and what they're doing. To do that in a cost-effective way, you're going to have to rely on algorithms. You're going to have to rely on data science techniques to do that scalably at a price you can afford. And if you're going to expect your customer to trust you as the curator of this extraordinary trove of data about lifestyle and behavior and health history and so on, you're really going to have to up your game on security and trust. And if you don't have all 4 of those pieces, the commitment to personalize the experience, the talent and technology to infer personalization from context, the ability to wrap a story around that and do so at scale, and the ability to do it in a way that's highly and visibly trustworthy, then you really don't have a mobility strategy. This is going beyond the product to the story. Early this morning, you heard Randy say, think of yourself as a media company. It doesn't mean you have to think of yourself as a screenplay writer. They have people for that. Today we call them customers. Andrew Rosenthal at Jawbone said that the first generation of their technology was built on the impression that if you gave people data about their health and their physical activity, it would change their behavior. And they discovered they were wrong. The data didn't do it. You had to wrap the data into a story in which the customer's accomplishments and behavior change let them feel like the hero. Every one of your customers wants to feel like the hero of a story, and your customer community are each other's audience, and you are the MC. And so when we said that the theme for today was busting silos, please don't think that that's the accomplishment. That's the necessity. Busting the silos is something you have to do so you can have these extraordinary flows of data, these opportunities to add value, these necessities of developing the talent that traditional sources of talent may not yet be ready to provide to you, but absolutely meetings in which you do not have the business people boldly brainstorming while the IT people sit there waiting for someone to say something that sounds like a requirement. Because that was one of the other scenarios that we heard this afternoon. The IT people are there. They showed up for the meeting with the business unit, and they're not hearing any requirements. Well, it's got to be a new kind of conversation in which experiments are bravely undertaken, costs are understood, costs of failure are understood to be small, and rewards for success are understood to be, at a minimum, survival, which is pretty good, but if you do it really well, fantastic, breakout, category redefining success. Which brings us to the finalists from the demo pit. So let's hear about the people who are going to be doing this. It is my privilege now to bring to the stage, in no particular order, because I don't yet know who's going to be named number one, Alex Polikov from LiveGenic, CEO. Don't bother sitting down. At least two of you won't be here long. Chris Dima is the CEO and co-founder of Mongosluice. Sounds like you should be competing with Jamba Juice, but I don't think so. No. And Carlos Vega, CEO of Tesorio. And because we love you all equally for at least the next 3 minutes, let me start with Carlos, your last one up. Tell us a little about Tesorio. This is about self-financing of daily operations. Sounds like taking something that's just been a barrier to democratization and access to the marketplace for the small company and saying, look, you too can have the best available stuff. Tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, that's 100% correct. So, before I just graduated from Wharton's MBA program last May, and before coming there, I was an investment banker and I had a factoring company for about 4 years. Factoring is when, for those that don't know, it's accounts receivable finance. So it's when, for example, a large company owes a small company $100, they can sell it to a factoring company and get maybe 95 cents on the dollar. So running that company, I got tired of seeing how expensive it was for small businesses to finance their working capital, and just knew there had to be a better way. So the way to do that, and what we're doing at Tesorio, is basically leveraging the great credit risk of the big companies, right? And so we work directly with the big companies to find ways that they can pay their suppliers earlier at a discount.
Fantastic. So for those of you who remember the stories about the guys in the gold rush who got rich selling blue jeans, eggs, and shovels to the guys who are going to go look for the gold, there's always someone who wants to collect a receivable from somebody, right?
Right.
Yeah, this is a surefire business. Chris, we've been talking about big data and about the fact that you can't just go into the marketplace and buy products to do this stuff, because open source isn't a product. It's an ecosystem in which products emerge, like yours. Tell us about what you're doing to make big data something that people can actually do something with.
Sure. So much of the data that's being generated by apps and new processes, it's unstructured data, and it's not easy to understand what the insight is in that data. And the analytics on those new platforms isn't there. So what's the best thing to do is for us, it was to turn that unstructured data into something that looks like something that everybody works with on the SQL side, in Oracle, any structured database. So we're transforming big data into something that everyone can work with, and that's great for businesses. It's great for data. It's great for getting insight, and we've seen transformational changes in processes, taking something that took 3 days to 3 minutes.
Outstanding. Fantastic. Great. So a lot of what we've been talking about today has been making the business run more efficiently, because that makes people happy, getting into exciting new stuff like big data, because that makes people feel sexy, and I just told them that they had to do it, so this is good. But all of it driven toward the idea of revolutionizing customer experience. And I've said a couple of things that some people misinterpreted. When I said that surveys suck, I didn't mean that surveying sucks. I mean that most surveys gather late, incomplete, inaccurate reports from a misrepresentative sample of your customers, and therefore don't go in the right place. But Alex, we're talking about what you guys are doing at LiveGenic to really gather ground truth about what is the service experience that your customers are having, because that's what's really going to kick people in the pants and say, look, we got to reinvent this. You guys saw the chart I put up this morning about 78% of retail companies think they're doing better than the average. They can't all be right, and you're going to give them the painful truth, as it may be, to help them do better. Tell us a little bit more.
Sure, I'd love to, thank you. When a customer service is basically fielded, it's hidden behind the 800 phone number. And a lot of times, we know that for the past 50 years, that's the phone number we call for immediate service and assistance.
Did you say disservice? You said disservice.
No, I said service, but but what kind of experience do we get? I mean, we get essentially order takers. They document in. It's just form fields and things like that. So really, the quality of service is not excellent because there's really not a way to visualize what the customer is experiencing. So we've built a real-time video platform that is delivered for the customer service, essentially environments that allows them to see what the customer sees during a call, providing quick and easy resolution.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. As I said, I don't know which of these is going to be the one that goes home happiest today. All three of them have surfaced from what I believe was the largest and most vigorous pool of demo pit contenders we had this year, and all of them deserve your ovation before we name one of them as the first prize. After all, any one of them might have been having his best day he's ever had today. But at this point, to disambiguate the situation, let's bring up Ian Gallagher and find out what's going on.
Thank you, Peter. Appreciate it.
Okay, you got a mic. Good.
I do. Comcast Business is proud to sponsor today's demo pit. First, I want to thank PACT and the entire organization for putting together today's event. I also want to say thank you and best of luck to all the demo companies that you saw here today. But with most things in life, there can only be one winner, and it was a tight contest. But it is now my pleasure to announce today's winner. Please help me congratulate Tesario.
Thank you.
Great job. It's all about the money, isn't it? And I think that's the last you're going to hear from me today, but I'm sure I'm not the last person who's supposed to be on stage today. So whoever's actually going to declare victory for the day, please come up here and take this microphone away from me before I do something dangerous with it. You got it? It's not my party.
Just one final, again, thank you to Peter Coffey, please. Our demo pit winner is running out of here to go prepare for tonight, bypassing the cocktail party perhaps, 6:30 p.m. TM. Again, you're all welcome to come, but before that, we have a wonderful cocktail reception. I believe the rain has stopped, and please join us out on the lawn, straight out. Thank you for all of your support, your attendance here today, all of our panelists, our keynote speakers, our sponsors, everyone who worked incredibly hard to put this together. Again, we are proud as PAC to produce Forum with you and for you, and look forward to future generations of it. Again, have a great night. Thank you.